really remember the lyrics of this song. It can bring anybody to tears when you remember. See, there goes my non-multitasking. When you remember how much God gives us. Look, it's so easy to get wrapped up in a circumstance, in a disappointment, in a heartbreak, or whatever it might be. It's so easy to get wrapped up, right? However, we have to sometimes just take ourselves, when you feel your frustrations and your emotions kind of getting the best of you and taking over, and that heaviness starts to creep in, that means it's time to take a seat. It's time to take a seat, and it's time to remember just how much God has done. To look back and remember where he's brought you from, the answered prayers. You know, I went into my little journal to tell God exactly how I was feeling. I literally went, and I hadn't been in my journal in some time, specifically my digital journal. And I know that I did say that it is important when we were talking about forgiveness to make sure you have an exchange with God. Sometimes we just got to be real. God is not looking for a robotic relationship. He is looking for the real. He is looking for the heart of you. And I went into my journal to just be like, because I kind of started the conversation with him in my head. Now I wanted to just get it out. And before I could even start typing, I saw I want to say hundreds. I really don't know how many notes I've made over the last few years of so many prayers, so many of them that I could just check off, check off, check off. He did that. He answered that. He showed up. He did more than I could imagine. So it's almost like I had to get corrected. And I didn't even feel that it was necessarily from him. He was ready. He said, come on with it. Come on, sit down. Tell me how you really feeling. Take a little moment. You know, sometimes you take a little moment kind of going like this because you don't want, you could talk to your girlfriend, you could talk to your mama, you could talk to anyone. But the moment that conversation and that exchange begins with God, it's going to get real. And some of us are like, as women, as we wear the superwoman cape, we feel like we don't have time to get real because we know what's going to happen. We know some door is going to open that we personally may feel not right now. I got this to do, So God is sitting back saying, okay, but as you wait, you continue to kind of formulate your own idea of what I'm doing in your life and who I am. And you tend to sometimes forget the love, the grace, and the mercy I have for you. So I was listening to that song because I went into my journal and I still was able to be honest and exchange. But I had to begin my conversation thanking him for everything that he's done, that he didn't have to do. I could still be, let's just say in your whole lifetime, you've got 20 major prayers, and I'm just, being very underestimate. I could still be sitting on prayer number 2, waiting for him to answer prayer number 2. I'm telling you, I look back and I could see all the boxes checked, and I got overwhelmed about his grace and his mercy, even though now I'm in a whole new season of boxes, okay? And I'm like, what's going on? You ain't checking these boxes. What you doing? Saving the world, Lord. Don't forget about me. You start to question, what did I do? Am I not doing enough for you, Lord? Are you here? Are you hearing me? He said, look back at those other boxes from that other season. Am I hearing you? Trust me, trust my time. So I just wanted to start with that because it is so real for us as women. And I knew I didn't want to go there with him. And the moment I went there, I could feel him. I could feel his presence. When you have that exchange, and when you have an honest exchange with God, there is no room for you to stay in this place. You show up like this, but by the end of that exchange, you are reminded that he is your father. He is the King of Kings, and he's got you. And it may not be the way you thought it was going to be, and you may be hurt. You might have a broken heart, but he has got you, okay? So with all that being said, Oh, thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Nana. You see me side hosting. I opened a what? You know what? Hold on. You can you can hold on. You can sign with you. You know what? How do I get up out of here? This is really cool, but I don't want this. What did I touch? Oh, just exit. Let me see if I have some WebEx experts in here. Maybe close for all. You can close the whiteboard. Oh, okay. Oh, somebody, you know what? Listen, it got done. The Spirit of the Lord is here. No, I am not going to write on. It keeps opening. Oh, this is someone else's whiteboard. Irma? Oh, so when somebody else opens it, okay, so I probably have to figure out a way to and disable. So unfortunately, I'm sorry. I know it's such a wonderful um item to add to this, but unfortunately, ladies, we can't. I don't know why. Irma, it looks like you keep opening the whiteboard. But let me see if I can stop that from happening. Da, 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 da. Close for all. Da, 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 da. Close whiteboard. Okay. So I don't know why. All right. Yeah. Don't open the whiteboard because right now we don't know how to. I'm sorry because you should be able to open it on your end. That's actually really cool. I don't know. We'll figure it out because I love that. I would love if you guys could take notes on here. So I definitely will research a little bit more. Sorry, Irma. Thank you though, because now you just taught us. You taught us something. All right. You taught me. I didn't even know we had a whiteboard up in here. I know. I know. Irma's like, look, I ain't know either. So this leads us to chapter 6, right? This leads us to chapter 6. And I was just like, oh, here we go. Here we go as we talk about navigating relationships through a perspective of Christ, pretty much. At the end of the day, this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to love people more than we put people above us, and again, in a Christ-like way. This doesn't mean not taking care of yourself. This doesn't mean not seeing the worth and the value in yourself. This doesn't mean taking all boundaries down. No, the way God does things, and we talked about this last week, is he is as wise as a serpent and as humble as a dove, right? So you navigate relationships like Christ, which ultimately shows people God's love. How can we engage with people when it gets real? And you know what I'm talking about. When things start to get under your skin and really affect you, but you still are called to show these people God's love, not shade, love, right? Okay, ladies? So this is where we are. Chapter 6, from heartbreak to grace. Long story short, this woman, because remember, this book is actually made up of a bunch of different stories. So this woman particularly, this was, I mean, and I had to really like put myself in her shoes. I was like, wow, she grew up. Not grew up. She has a family, a husband, and there's probably some women in here that can actually relate to this in some way. She has a beautiful family and they're Christian, going to church, doing their thing. Her teenage daughter is, beautiful in high school, has extracurricular activities, very, very busy. And every Sunday, their church gets up very early in the morning. They go to that first service. Shout out to the first service. I know. You know what I'm saying? They go to the first service. They got the rest. That's how my mom convinced me. When I was younger, my mom was like, first service. I was like, first service? That's pretty much yesterday. I might as well not go to sleep. You're waking me up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to this church with 1,000 people, But then by the time church was, we went to 8 o'clock service and it was over at 9:30. She could still make me some pancakes. I could get back in the bed. I realized I still had the whole day. That's how she could, because she would say, she'd say, see, we got the whole day. And I'm like, all right, but it was still a struggle. When I was in high school, my friends would be like, you're in first service? Okay, I know. Anyway, the cool kids would go to third service back in the day. And my mom used to drag us out CLC days, 4 services. I said, Mom, this ain't it. This ain't it. We are online. You are feeding me, what was it, the ramen noodles online? In a tent? I said, Mommy, this ain't it. That was my first introduction to CLC. I must have been like 6 years old. Looking at my mother like, what are we doing in this tent with ramen noodles? But all that to say, same thing with this family. They were getting their daughter up, taking her to church, thinking all was well. And eventually her daughter started to express some questions. She goes up, she has her own mind of her own, and she started to explore this thing called Christianity. And the mother kind of brushed it off like, questions? Like, girl, you know who God is. Don't worry. I know you're struggling, da da da. Long story short, fast forward. She sends her daughter off to college, and it is there where her daughter continues to explore. I do believe that, when you go out, you have an opportunity as a youth, to figure out, okay, this is what I've been doing with my family, but is this my conviction? Is this my revelation? Is this the choice that I'm making for me? And, again, not trying this. Look, I'm not trying to sponsor CCC or anything, but I grew up in an incredible church as a youth that I had mentors and leaders. So the moment I wanted to question or get a little buck wild, let me tell you something. My mentors had me like by the throat. And not in an aggressive way. It was just, they were there. So this is the importance of needing a village, not just as a youth, but even as an adult. The Lord has been screaming, village, you still need a village. So ultimately her daughter goes to college, and, the rest is history. She winds up meeting some very cool, great friends. They were Muslim. So she eventually denounced Christianity and picked up becoming an Islam. And she called her mother and let her know. And for that, I think she said for the next 10 years, her and her mother, they could barely be in the same room, okay, without exchanging some type of argument or what are you doing or some type of religious battle. And it continued to eat and tear down their relationship. So you can think about this any type of way. You can think about it. I'm sure many of us can relate to this, maybe not a child, but a family member, and or someone very, very close to you. And it always seems like because they know what you believe, we just gotta, and I love my father, and I have shared, which my father wouldn't mind. He is not a believer. And back in the day, he's never forced or pushed, but he's always had the questions. We would sit in the car and we go in the blimpies, and he's like, yeah, something, and I'll be like, oh my gosh. He's like, oh my gosh, can he hear you? I'm like, you know what? So some people they just want, or as I had to mature because I would shy away from those relationships because sometimes they would make me upset at some of his comments or his, whatever. But over time, I realized, this is an opportunity just to share Jesus. I'm not looking to get him saved. I'm not looking to push him, but our relationship got so much better the moment I decided to stop putting up my guard and being so offended because of his beliefs, right? And this is pretty much what the mother said. And let me tell you, this was such a crazy quote. And I want to talk about family. We talk about hurt. I want to talk about family real quick. It says, a poet by the name of Adrian Rich writes this. And I'm only going to read half of it. Probably there is nothing in human nature more resonant with charges than the flow of energy between two biologically alike bodies. Woo! Basically, they're saying the most energy between two people sometimes are the ones that are carrying the same blood as you. And many times that energy is the one that'll have some of the biggest effects on you, which is real. And this doesn't discount close family, and I don't even just mean like actual blood, because some people, like I know my husband was adopted. I'm talking about those people you grew up with and you consider your family. You've done life with them. You've grown with them. That energy hits different. I know that. I have people in my life that are not blood, but they might as well. I done known them for literally almost 20 years. I'm 36. If I've known you for 25 years, we've done some life together. We've seen each other go through stuff. And when we come around each other, that energy is very different than someone that I may have just known, and, things like that. History is real. And we talked about this last time. The relationships in life that you may hold on to because of history. And a lot of times it's not just the history, it's that energy. You're like, oh my gosh, she just can affect me so much. He just can affect me so much. I must have to fight through this, whatever the case is. I got to keep fighting. And I think that, it actually goes on to say, even between a child and a parent. I love how it's said. It's a poem. It went on to say, one of which has lain in amniotic bliss inside the other, and one of which has labored to give birth to the other. What a relationship. One who got to just get carried along. Yeah, mama, I was chilling. I was in amniotic bliss while my mother was over there, having to go through labor pains to give birth. Same for me. Now, I know what it's like to go through some pregnancy and give birth while my daughter's out here living carefree, but the relationship between the people that we share in our lives, whether it be parent to child, or family member to family member, or someone with such a history that you were able to do life with, this, my sisters, is where the real heartbreak begins. You really can't have real heartbreak if your heart ain't in it. And the deeper your heart is in it, the deeper the breaking. And, and some of that heartbreak can happen slowly over time. You keep trying, you keep letting them, you keep fighting to try to make this relationship fit in this mold for you, and it's not working. But let me just say this, okay? Grace. We're going to go straight to it because we already know what that heartbreak is. I don't think I personally have to define heartbreak to my sisters on here. We don't have to go through, but what I do want you to do is this. If you will take a moment of courage to get into your mind with God, as God leads you. It could be someone or some situation that has led you to a level of heartbreak. It could be over time. It could be a recent revelation and it just made you sad, or just broke your heart. It broke your heart, or whatever. This could be past tense. You have healed from it, because I can't wait for the open forum, because we're going to hear from different levels of this. See, the thing that the mom here eventually realized is, the more she tries to fight to allow her daughter and herself to have this relationship, she had to let go of the mold. She had to let go of the fight. She had to, in order to save the relationship, she had to let go of everything she thought just wasn't right about everything about her daughter. From beginning with her beliefs, you can imagine. And I love how she said, ultimately, when she was able to choose grace over heartbreak, and we're going to get into that, it ultimately led to her and her daughter every Thanksgiving making pies in the kitchen, not talking about anything else, but loving on each other and being with each other. And that took 10 years for them to get to that place. And she cherishes those times with her daughter where she's able to simply make pies. And she's showing God's love in a very indirect way by simply showing up and making those pies as her mom. I was just like, you know what I'm saying? Because now, as a mother as well, I can't imagine. I don't think that far. But then I'm like, wait a minute. I did this with my dad. I can't, I'm taking my daughter. It's so funny. I just had this conversation with my husband. I said, we are going to make sure we're in church every Sunday because our daughter is following us, right? Child, we haven't been in church every Sunday now, but we're working on it. This new YouTube, sometimes, depending on the night perch I had, I'm like, well, now, thank God for, online. But we know the importance of fellowship. And I was telling him, we want her to get used. But then it also hit me. I said, one day she is going to get older and she's going to be able to make her own decision. And all I can do is guide, pray. I can't force it down her throat. I can only be who I am and pray and pray and pray that the child I done trained up will find God, and God, because I know God is there, and that revelation will be there for her. But then I think, as the child, for my father, in order for that relationship to finally go like this, where nowadays he don't even really bring it up as much. Sometimes, I was even shocked. I think it was a last Father's Day. He's like, I'll go to church with you. I was like, I had to really bring it down. I was like, oh, okay. You want to come to church with me? That's fine. That's ain't nothing church merch. You know what I mean? But instead I was like, what is going on here? He's like, maybe. So once he said maybe, I had to breathe. I said, no, maybe. We ain't got to go, Dad. Maybe. Who wants to get, but we can go, because then we can get breakfast after. I just had to bring it. But all that to say, who knows the seeds that you can never place with people. And it's not always necessarily about coming into contact with a believer. Her situation was specifically because her daughter chose Christianity. But in our different experiences of heartbreak, we can be just as heartbroken with another Christian. Sometimes it ain't about that. All right. Sometimes it could just be, a complete agree to disagree, right? Somebody is just so different from you, or maybe they're just so alike, or whatever it is, but maybe something happened, or maybe something happened over time. And the more that we fight and that heartbreak stays there, and we start to put up boundaries. And this is why this thing called relationships, this is why we're here talking about it. You want to know why? Because it's the most complex thing. Because, in one breath, in one situation, absolutely put up boundaries. But then in another situation, God is saying, hey, you're putting up boundaries and walls while I didn't have you put them. I'm actually trying to teach you grace in this relationship. Yeah, you could put up those walls. Yeah, you can put up those boundaries, but I didn't guide you to that. So relationships from one person to the next can look very different. You may have hundreds of people in your life, but the way that you deal with each person is very different. So I want you to remember that when we talk about different things, we're not always talking about every single person in your life or this person that did this. This is the importance of knowing God's voice. And this is the importance of knowing his word and allowing the Holy Spirit to guide you, because you can mix up the way somebody else hurt you, that you treat everybody else the same way that hurt you. And that ain't it. That ain't it. It wise as serpents, humble as doves, and making sure that you're learning, allowing God to teach you how to navigate through each relationship, because each person is uniquely made. Each person is different. Each person is a child of God, and each person deserves grace. And that's ultimately what it came down to. It came down to, yes, I know, but she and he and she, but God. And we've heard this saying before, but God. There can be so many reasons why we choose to respond to heartbreak a certain way, but God, right? And I was like, I've heard people say that so many times, I was doing it, but God, but this one hit different. And it's Romans 5:8. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were still breaking his heart, he gave the ultimate sacrifice. And if we can learn to turn that grace around on ourselves while we're still the most imperfectly perfect being, while we are still beautifully broken, if we can still give ourselves that same grace that, man, I don't got it. Man, I keep messing up. Man, I keep going back. But God, his plans for me are not going to change. His promises are going to remain. And if I can show myself that grace, then I can give someone else that grace. That while they were still breaking my heart, but God, right? I know. Whew. Listen, okay? It's a practice. It is not a, you know what? Okay, it is a practice every day. It's a process and a practice to truly show people grace because it's not easy. The first time you try, you might open your mouth and the wrong thing comes out. Been there, done that. You done walked in, prayed up, ready, and they just came and you just said, you know what? First of all, what you're not going to do, and you're like, wow, I really that wasn't, all right, next time. It's a practice. God said, bring it back. Come on. That's not the but God I was talking about. And here's what stuck out to me. When we are able to show that type of grace, we are able to get back in the vineyard. And I love that she said that. She said, I need you to stop spending so much time arguing and fighting and holding on to this heartbreak with the wrong people because the people are many, but the laborers are few. I need you back in the vineyard. Am I saying that right? Is it vineyard? Vineyard? Vineyard. I need you back in the vineyard. It's people all over. God, I love you. God, I worship you. But the laborers are few. Who are the laborers? The ones that are practicing the grace. The ones that are putting in the work to love people that are breaking their hearts. It's so easy to just open your mouth and say, I love God, grace and peace. I know, right? And yet you're not putting in the work. You're not practicing that grace that God freely gives to us that we don't deserve. Like I said, I opened up my journal. I had some words for God. I could barely get there because he showed me how much he's done that I don't deserve. And here I come with my chip on the shoulder, talking about, well, I got a bone to pick with you, God. Let me just get into I remember. Oh, yeah, you did. Well, I am blessed. Sometimes when things go down now in my life that hurt, my response now is, but I count my blessings. You know how I feel? Okay, that might not have worked out, but I could tell you about 10 things that did. I can tell you 10 more things that God did for everything that didn't happen. And when it didn't happen, I can look back and say he did do something because he intervened and he didn't have to. Now it's still a blessing. Okay? Ladies, pick this book up. Because listen, at the end of the day, the laborers are few. We sitting in here right now with about 66, 67 women. The laborers are few to put in the work, to hear God. You're here because you are literally seeking God's word. You are here and you are going to church. You are finding God wherever you can. There are so many other things you could be doing right now. You could have your feet picked up on a chair with a good R&B station on. You know why? Because you deserve that. Good old Drew Hill, take it back. You know what I'm saying? You deserve that with a nice little cup of apple juice. Where y'all going? Yeah, because you've been running. You've been working. You're a woman. What can I say? But you're here because the laborers are few, right? And that's not against anyone else. I'm just saying. Anyone that keeps showing up to say, okay, how can I get closer to God because, child, right? And I love how she says this. Grace has only one direction that it can take, and it always flows down. And so at the end of this book, this is what I got from it. Grace says, but God. Heartbreak says, God, but Hear me out, right? Right? You get right? It just it turned my whole perspective around. Cause when I go to with my chip on the shoulder, I'm like, yeah, and this God and this happened, but and he's like, well, if you show grace, you'll start to see, but God. You'll see your situation so differently. And you'll look at the person who broke your heart or is breaking your heart or whatever heartbreak been in, and you look at them with grace and you can say, but God, instead of, yeah, God, but, ooh. Grace flows down, mean it's given. It's a pouring out. It's a practice. Heartbreak puts itself above. My heart is broken, and therefore the guard is going up. Everything that I do is based on how I feel, not necessarily what God is saying first. I start to put new demands and do different things based on my heartbreak. And when I do that, I can't really hear them because heartbreak, it fills up. It fills up and it's insatiable. It continues to fill up. Why am I so red? You know what? Okay. I can feel my ears burning. Sometimes certain messages just really get to me. Okay, so grace is humility because listen, for some of those people that broke your heart, you might have said, you'll never catch me, right? It is hard saying some of the things you have to say and showing that love. Woo, that is decreasing. It is so hard. But heartbreak says pride. Yeah, well, you got the right ones today, right? You ain't going to get blocked, right? You ain't no boundary. Did God say that for this one? Might have said it for that one, but did he say it for this one? Tricky, tricky. Grace says, I am going to surrender to the way God sees it because the way I'm trying to make this relationship or this thing work, this ain't it. It's not the path. I thought it was supposed to go like this. This can speak to romance as well. I thought we were supposed to do this, but now I have to surrender to a different way. God's way. You got to surrender that. Some of us are so stuck on the way we saw it happening that we get stuck in heartbreak. And we begin to put unfair expectations on the person that's breaking your heart because they're going to continue to break your heart if you don't change those expectations. But we get stuck. Well, but they should know me. They should know by now. You don't say that. You don't do that to me. Right? But grace says, but God says, surrender. It ain't going down the way you thought it was going down. And ultimately, if you surrender, you're trusting the outcome that I have for you, not your expected outcome. Grace says, humble yourself, surrender to my way, and trust my outcome, because then you will release that heartbreak and you can turn and I can heal your land. And I can bless you and I can show you something way better than the way you thought. I'm sure it was a great, like I'll be coming to God because I'm like, man, that was a great plan. I thought you were in it. He's like, it was a great plan. But trust that I got something a little different. But I wanted to see, sometimes God will let you go so far in a plan just to see if you'll trust him when things take a left. You know, you're going down the street and you see the destination and you're like, oh, okay, we're almost there. And you ever been in an Uber? Oh my gosh, my husband cannot, not only does he even want me to be a passenger seat, I am a horrible passenger seat driver. So maybe that speaks to my relationship with God, because the moment you ever been in an Uber, and if you're like me, if you ever go out of town on vacation, I don't play that, right? I'm in an Uber and I put in the address too. I want to know how much time and that we're making a right and a left. That Uber will make a right and I'll be like, excuse excuse me, are we gonna head the resort is he's like, yeah, I know, I live here. It's just, I'm like, all right. And now he knows I've got the navigation on. So he's just like, ugh, you know? But I'm like, good. I want you to know that I know where we're going or we're not going. But see, in relationship with God, it don't work like that. He's like, I see your navigation on. That's good. Love it. Love the work. We're going to take this hard left. And you're like, hold on, God. And see, the way that God works is he's not always going to say what's happening. Or he pulls over. Lord, I got places to be. He's like, do you? What's going on? You rushing? Sometimes he pulls over because he's like, I just wanted to sit with you for a second because we're going real fast and I just noticed some things I want to talk to you about. I'm like, talk? Child, we don't get to this destination. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking to God right now, so forgive me. That's probably why I'm so red, because I'm telling on myself. All right. So we got to be able to do that. Grace flows down. It's undeserved. You cannot earn it, and it's freely given. And we love to accept it, right? We don't deserve it. We can't earn it. I don't care if you messed up yesterday, but today whatever. You can't earn. There's nothing you could do or not do that's going to change God's love or promises for your life and your plan and your bright future, your prosperous future, the gifts that he sees, the value that you have does not change based on your weaknesses. Not in God's eyes. Who he sees you as, even if you don't see yourself, it does not change. He's trying to get you to elevate your perspective, right, to his. But it's undeserved. You can't earn it, and it's freely given. And we think about Joseph, the brother. He was out there telling his brothers who he's going to be, what he's going to do. And child, they done threw him in a ditch, just messed his whole, life up. Can you imagine? I always think about that, because I would just be like, what? God, you gave me these dreams. You gave me not one, but 2 dreams about how I'm going to have my brothers bowing to me. I didn't mean it like that. Maybe I shouldn't have told them, but a ditch? What did I do? I'm just getting sold off here. Wonderful. Oh, I'm in jail. Great. I'm falsely accused. No worries. Definitely on the path to greatness here, God. But one thing I will say about Joseph, I mean, I don't know if he was making those comments on the side, because I know if I was Josephina, I would have been, you know what, God, this is not, I don't know. You must not know where we're going. He maintained who he was. I'm sure he had some days, though. Let's be clear. That's what I love about the Bible. You got to let the Holy Spirit speak to you and reveal. But I sometimes read the Bible and I pause and I'm like, okay, really? I know Joseph had some exchanging with God. And you want to know how I know that? Because by the end, when he became King, Pharaoh, whatever, what he became, one of those. Yeah. And he got put into that position and his brothers came, not even knowing. He was unrecognizable. And when he saw them, all he could do was turn around and weep quietly. So much of that heartbreak. And I think it's kind of funny because he struggled. He threw them boys for a whirlwind. They stole from us. They were like, wait, what? No, I'm literally just coming for grain. What's happening? Throw him in jail. He had a little time. He had a little heartbreak time with them. So you're not going to tell me Joseph wasn't exchanging along the way, because he felt all of that. Even with where he was, he felt all of it come back. Throw him in jail. I said, I know that's right. I was waiting to see the human side of, throw him in jail. Yeah, he stole. He was yeah. And then, the big reveal. And they're like, oh my goodness. And he's like, yeah, it's me. You know what I mean? But ultimately, he had to show them grace. You could see the conviction and the wrestling and the weeping and the heartbreak. And honestly, in his position, that could have been the end of the story. He threw them in jail, took off his little Pharaoh wig and was like, it's me. What's up? Remember when you put me in? Yeah, remember you betrayed me? Well, let me tell you what happened. Did you even come back and look for me? And you was my best friend. You know what I'm saying? He could have, if I knew Joseph, please. My name would have been in the Bible, but they would have been like, don't talk to that. I'd have been like, child, those are them brothers. Those are them. All right, this is what we could do. I'm kidding. As, But ultimately, at the end of the day, um, he showed grace. He showed them undeserved favor. They couldn't earn it. What they gonna do? Think about the people in your life. The damage is done. And some of us as women are fighting so hard for them to undo the damage. That's impossible. It's done. The damage is done. The heartbreak happened. That's why it says you can't earn it. You already hurt me. If you knew how to rewind time, then maybe we can, sometimes an apology, okay, but I'm hurt. Now what? I can't trust you. And even just some of the characters, especially of like some of his older brothers, I would be like, okay, we're cool now, but like, I know your character, older bro, because you've been wanting me gone. So who are you today? And it was freely given. He didn't make his brothers pay or work for it. And so I always think about that, when we think about how we are handling that. But heartbreak will deal with the pride, the control, and instead of trusting God, we fear for that saint. We fear. That hurt was so deep that we've allowed it to turn into a fear that it wouldn't happen again. You won't do that to me again. So now I'm acting out of fear when you do or move or say something. I'm acting my pride. It doesn't mean you're a prideful person when you act in pride. It just means that you are just like, you're not going to do that to me again, and you want to control the way that it's happening. So you maintain certain expectations. You're controlling the exchange that you're having with this person or this situation instead of surrendering it the way that God sees it. You may not agree with the way God sees it. You may say, this seems unfair for me to let it go this way, your way. And he's ultimately saying, fear not, trust me. Trust my outcome. And when you begin to doubt me, remember Jeremiah 29:11. I'm the one who knows the plans for you. The plans I have for you are to prosper you and to give you a bright future, period. You may not know exactly how, and you may think your way is better, but trust me, I'm the one who knows the plans. You may make the plans, but I have the final say. And if you trust that I love you and that nothing can come in between that love, trust me, I'm going to do it for you so that you can run and tell the people about me. I'm going to do it for you so that I can bless you, so you can bless someone else, and you can give me all the glory. Period. Child, I closed this book and I said, you know what? Can't be exchanging with the Lord, because then he comes up with a chapter 6 like this. Right? Woo. But it's hard. It is difficult, but it's so possible. And the testimonies that come from this. So when we meet again, let me tell you, ladies, I, for one, need to hear from someone who's got a testimony about what happens when you decide to show grace over heartbreak. Please let me know. I've seen it. I've done that. I've been there. I know, but sometimes life will keep lifing and people will keep peopling. You get over one thing and, sometimes we pray and we say, Lord, thank you so much. I'm in a new place. Let me make room for new godly relationships. Yeah, they'll come and they'll be godly, but that doesn't mean that the issues and the heartbreak won't come. You can't keep praying for a new circle. At some point, that circle, you might be the smartest person in your group, right? You get a new circle. Now you're in the circle. Now you got to deal with the circle. God said, well, I sent you a new circle. Never said it was going to be easy. I sent you a new circle so they can love on you and you can love on them. So, and I'm throwing out a bunch of scenarios. This could be a family member. It could be the job. It could be church hurt. It could be a circle. It could be a situation. It could be your own self that you need to show grace to. Your own self. Ladies, we struggle with really, we break our own hearts sometimes. We allow ourselves, just like the word says, when I want to do right and I do wrong. And we break our hearts when we don't meet the standard we have for ourselves. And because of that, we don't realize that we're dealing with a lot of pride, control, and fear in our own lives. And we need to give ourselves grace. Allow ourselves to feel that free grace, that humility, that surrenderance, and be in God's presence with that and receive his grace so you can give it. Because if you don't receive God's grace for yourself, you are going to struggle with giving it. You can't give something that you don't have, and this is why I'm so excited that we walk together. And now questions to sit with over the next 2 weeks, which is what we'll open up with in the open forum. I pray you ladies, I pray somebody receives something as you move through even the evening and tomorrow and begin to meditate on grace. And this is why I chose this song, Great is Your Mercy, because I had to be reminded of all the undeserved mercy, loving kindness, faithfulness, providing that he's done for me day after day. Because when I remember that, it puts you in a posture of gratitude. And when you become in that posture of gratitude and receiving that grace, you can do that to someone else. So the relationship may look a little different than what you expected when you show grace, but trust God with the outcome. But at least you'll be letting go of the heartbreak. Okay? So questions to ask yourself. Number one, who do I want to argue with for Christ who I could instead simply love for Christ? Am I going to argue? And she's talking about over being a believer. But I love that. Are you going to argue and fight? Or are you going to love for Christ? What past mistakes or relationships in my life do I believe are out of God's reach? See, we don't say it, but we respond like God can't do anything with this relationship. And like I said, it's never necessarily waiting for the person to change their ways, because most likely the ways are going to ways. Them ways are going to be there. It's you learning how to hear God's voice and how to navigate that relationship with grace. He'll show you what types of boundaries, and sometimes he'll send you in to sit at the table with them when you normally wouldn't choose to do that yourself. But you got to allow God to bring those relationships, everything in your life, back in his reach, because he's doing it for you. He's a multitasker, okay? He is a multitasker. So what he's doing for you, he's got something in store for the other person too. God's got a ripple effect with everything he does. I'm like, he knows how to hit that one domino that knows how to bless everyone. That's the God that we serve. And number three, what would it look like for me to extend grace to myself and someone else today that I may not have? I kind of altered the end of that question. Someone else that I may not be showing grace. You just, but when you do that, you block them out, but you're locking in some of that pain. When you slam the door without exchanging with God and don't even give the opportunity, you're closing the door on some things, but you're locking some things in, like that heartbreak, like that pride, like that control, and that fear. When you open the door and allow God to go before you, you're releasing the heartbreak, the fear, the control, and you're allowing yourself to surrender and trust God and take you to a whole new level of blessings. He says, as you come to me, before you give your offering of worship, let's handle some things. Let's handle some things. And then we can get you to this, all these other things that you have on I can give you your heart's desire, but you got to seek me first, right? And it's not easy, but trust me, the reward is so much greater than the suffering we experience. So 805, we did it. Well, not really, but So yes, ladies, man, I didn't even get to really see the chat ministry because it doesn't like, move automatically. Amen. I received that. Don't want to set yourself up to be in that situation again. Absolutely. Every relationship is different. Some boundaries will be greater than others, but just follow God. Just follow God. So we're going to end with the song, Great is Your Mercy. Shout out all of you that made it to this new platform, because I wasn't sure. I was nervous. I said, are y'all sure? Okay. And no helicopters were sent out, no phone calls. Thank the Lord. All right. Okay, hold on. Okay. So we're going to play this song as we think about God's grace and his goodness